Welcome to the PTTS. Today's date is November 28, 2025. My name is Nang Hong Lam. Well, currently I'm in the middle of writing the story Vast Retribution, and it is at the really like the sort of like the term that if people who are familiar with like the book association, basically that term cliffhanger means a really cinematic, a very sort of turmoil and cinematic, and kind of like in a way a lot of things happening in those scenes. The term is called cliffhanger, so I'm at that sort of like in a way you sort of like that whole argument. The argument is a person who's either reading or writing during those cliffhanger scenes. Usually it's really hard for that person to kind of like either stop writing or stop reading, because so that term cliffhanger, so kind of like I'm in sort of that, because so basically Vast Retribution, I'm at those cliffhanger scenes, so it's really hard for me to stop writing and things like that. But at the same time, like I've been complaining in my website blog and in my videos is where I speak in front of the camcorder. I've been complaining that about the problems is in my life and things like that, and it's sort of like in a way, and it's pretty much so I basically have I kind of like went with, you know, basically doing the same thing as I'm doing on writing my website blog about my life and talking about it in my video, into writing Bastard Retribution. Basically, I was just saying maybe the title, you know, Bastard Retribution, maybe could get more attention. You know, in a way, maybe people could relate to it, maybe able to grab some kind of attention, because I haven't got a feedback for 9 years of time on my website blog. So again, like I'm just, anyway, it's just like maybe it just, I don't know, like I'm just saying it all started because the same thing, you know, like in my life. Basically, I'm explaining the similar thing like I wrote in my website blog and in my talking about the camcorder, but like I'm just saying, you know, maybe just saying that kind of like in a way, you know, it's just kind of like, it's really hard to say that, you know, how come, you know, like having, you know, those two titles is, you know, regional TM game championship title and undisputed empty-handed championship title, would argue as, you know, like I could argue, you know, kind of in a way, you know, it is a achievement in general and could be argued as like the greatest achievement in the world, because it's just really hard, you know, kind of like the empty-handed combat title took about 6 years of time. You know, in that 6 year of time I have to win every fight and I can't lose a fight, and it's the same, you know, as for the TM game championship title, you know, kind of like in a way I have to have the most first places among all the players in the region of San Diego. So kind of like in a way, it's not something that okay, you could just felt like maybe if I put a lot of efforts and money and time into it, I could have it. It's something that is not that easy to achieve. It's like. Anyway, like I'm just saying, it's just really hard to say that those two titles is the curse in my life. It's the one that is destroying everything I stand for. It's the one that bring me down and everything. So it's really hard to say that. It's the reason that created this Great Depression in my life. That is the reason that destroyed everything I stand for. Kind of like in a way, who would believe in this kind of stuff? It's like those two titles your greatest achievement. And people would kind of argue that way. It's like. So pretty much, like I'm saying that, kind of like in a way, pretty much. So a lot have to do with it. I mean, it's not just those two titles, but like I'm saying, that two, just looking at those two titles that supposed to be the greatest achievements in the world have become like this curse that is, creating this Great Depression in my life and everything, kind of like in a way, seeing that is enough to kind of get started for people to maybe have some kind of acknowledgement about me and things like that. I felt that is enough for some kind of acknowledgement in my life, kind of like in a way, why I have to keep tormenting myself with that is not enough and things like that. It's like. Anyway, so pretty much I'm just trying to focus on that, that those two titles, for now, just don't go, kind of like in a way, just keep it at that, that first step, those two titles is enough for some kind of acknowledgement in my life, in a way, it's like. So pretty much that is like the same, like pretty much that is what I'm at on the Bastard Retribution, kind of like in a way, which is in those cliffhanger scene, saying how the Great Depression in my life started, and so kind of like in a way, basically that's the cliffhanger scene that I couldn't let go because it's just like, how could this happen to a person? It's like, more or less, that person deserves some kind of acknowledgement for having those two titles. It's just really very cruel for a person to have those two titles and not have any acknowledgement about it. It's like, or worse, those two titles become a curse and creating a Great Depression in that person's life. That would be argued as even worse, it's like worse than the Great Depression in that person's life. It's like. So pretty much that's where I'm at on Bastard Retribution, just really just saying that, I truthful, like kind of like in a way, truthfully thought that after going through all these competitions to have those two titles, I felt like the world would have some kind of acknowledgement of me, So pretty much that's my truthful thoughts is, about how the world and having those two titles is. So in a way, kind of explain how I felt like during those time. Just having those thoughts is that I would have some kind of acknowledgement. Having those two titles and things like that. It's like. So pretty much that's where the cliffhanger scene is, just like that sort of like really hard to explain situation is like. So that's where I'm at on writing the Bastard Retribution, the cliffhanger scene on trying to explain this very hard scene on why it's the not having acknowledgement from the world on having those two titles is. Okay, so thank you for watching PTTS. Thank you for joining PTTS. I'm gonna end this video in 3, 2, 1.